Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam Meon. Today I'm joined by Connor.
Hey, guys.
And Mike.
Hello.
And the PlayStation 5 Pro has been revealed, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. It largely fit all of the leaked specs. So we heard about the increased GPU, we heard about PSSR, we heard about all these things. The newest piece of information... Yeah, pisser.
Yeah,
I guess.
called it pisser.
With the newest piece of information, and perhaps the most interesting and the most discussed piece of information, is the price. The price of this thing is $699 US. How do we feel about that? Let's just dive into that.
At this point, just buy a PC.
Yeah, 100%. You are... I mean... A PS5, the $500 PS5 is already knocking on the door of a mid-range PC. This is past a mid-range PC. This is like, especially if you're willing to buy used components, you could build a fairly high-end PC for $700.
So this is perhaps where we disagree a little bit. I think, yes, it's true, you could build a fairly high-end PC for $700. I do not think you could build one that matches the PS5 Pro specs. You can get close, but I don't think you can quite do it for $700.
You can get a 46... If you're willing to make some compromises on things like a case, like some big compromises on a case, you absolutely can build. A 4060 Ti can be had for $400 new. If you're willing to go used, you can get even better than that. And, you know, $200 for a CPU, $100 for a motherboard. We're there. It's
2 terabyte SSD as well.
And
okay.
It doesn't have a disk drive, which...
Yeah, no disk drive, that's honestly to me, so we all have varying opinions, which is good here. I think I'm in agreement with you that this thing is definitely priced too high for the general market, but this is not for the general market. This is an enthusiast product. But the biggest thing to me, Mike, yes, the lack of a disk drive is the only thing that really stood out to me as being unacceptable.
This really brings it, because most enthusiasts are also going to have a substantial physical game collection.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken here.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Not having a disk drive means, like, all those games they bought physically, useless.
I mean, even more than that, if you are someone who has if you are a PlayStation person, there's a good chance your PlayStation is your entire media center. You don't have anything else hooked up to your TV. Now you have to have a Blu-ray player.
Yeah.
And that's either you're paying for the $80 attachment, which, do you know what this attachment looks like, Ahmed?
Yeah, so it basically just blends in and makes it look like a disc PS5.
Okay,
so if you've seen
it's not
a disc
like
PS5,
hanging off.
It'll look exactly just like a disc PS5. Yeah.
Okay, in my head, I had it as this thing hanging off of the side, which was like unacceptable.
No, that would have been just even worse.
I mean, that's what it is if you buy an external disc drive for a PC.
Okay, I will say it does look a little more sleek than the base PS5.
Yeah, I mean, it looks... the design language is largely the same. It will be the same height as a base PS5, right? Currently, the PS5 default model is the PS5 Slim, which is quite a bit smaller than, the standard PS5. But this thing will be the size of a standard PS5, and I think the only real difference visually is, one, the covers are less pronounced, which I think is a positive change.
Yes, I agree.
And two... I think that's it, actually. Like I was trying to think of another one. Yeah, the fins are smaller. No, sorry. Yeah, the gills. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. The gills. Yeah, which is very strange. But also, actually, I didn't even know this. If you look at a PS5 Slim, it has one gill.
Really?
Yeah, horizontal. So they're continuing that design language, because when the Slim console comes out, PlayStation treats that as like the default design for their current iteration of the console. And the Slim has this black kind of divider line going diagonally through, which I think looks kind of slick. But having 3 of them is just a little silly, in my opinion. Like, 1 looks kind of cool, but with 3, it's just a little...
Yeah.
Like you said, it looks like gills.
I think the gills look good. I don't have any problem with them, but it still just looks like a PS5. I still think it's hideous, and I would not want it in my living room. But
yeah, I mean, if you didn't like the design of the PS5, this is certainly not going to change your mind.
I still can't get past the $700 price point. I want to talk about it a little.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
This might be an insane take from me. I think 650 changes the whole conversation. I think 650 is a way better price point.
Oh,
I think you're right. Honestly, going into this, I was like, this thing is probably going to be $600.
600 makes sense. Yeah.
And
But
to see that lapped by 100, I was very surprised. I think everyone was surprised. No one was really expecting it to be that expensive. Granted, we know that a base PS5 is $500. This thing has some dedicated hardware. It has ML accelerated ray trace capabilities. You know, it's not doing software-based ray tracing. It's hardware accelerated. Right. It has custom cores for that. They worked with AMD to create a custom GPU that can do all these things. So obviously it was going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's just like you said, Connor, when you go up into that price range, you really are climbing into PC territory, and then at that point, people have to ask what the point is.
I'm going to hit you with some boy math here. $600 is $500. $700 is $1,000. Like, if I'm going to spend $700 on something, I have no problem spending $1,000 on something.
Yeah, I would just upcharge to get something that'll last a lot longer and not be outmoded when they decide to release a new one.
Like you're well into roundup territory at $700.
Here's something that I just looked up because I was curious. PS4 Pro at launch was $399, so $400.
Yes. Yeah.
And
it was the same price.
Was $300.
It was so things have changed a lot. Certainly.
Yeah. Even if you go with inflation, $399 is about $529.
Yeah, right. which would have been a totally reasonable price, but the PS5 disc edition is $500.
It is still $270 less than the PS5 Pro plus disc drive for you to have bought a PS4 Pro in today's money.
I would argue it's a bigger upgrade than the PS4 Pro was because of the ray tracing and PSSR. I guess we can't really say that yet because we haven't seen whether or not any games are even going to support this thing. Because if I'm a game developer, I just watched this and I've decided I'm not supporting it.
Sony has confirmed they said between 40 and 50 games will support PS5 Pro at launch. So whether that means...
That's a lot of games.
Yeah, that is a lot of games.
I can't name 50 PS5 games right now.
Well, no, so it's not all, first parties. This is a combination of first and third parties. But this thing is going to be supported heavily at launch, at least, which is very important.
That's good. Is there going to be backwards? I mean, they were showing Ratchet and Clank, so this is going to have backwards updates?
Yes, most of the games that are being supported are older games.
You said at launch, meaning when the PS5 Pro launches.
Yeah. 40, 50 games aren't launching with the Pro.
Do we
That's
have 40
crazy.
or 50 games worth talking about coming for the rest of the PS5's life? So, that's actually a lot of games.
Yeah, 40 to 50 existing games will get PS5 Pro patches. And I think this is very important. In an interview, they also confirmed that PSSR is something that can just be turned on and doesn't have to be implemented. So it will retroactively enhance a catalog of PS5 and PS4, a massive catalog of PS5 and PS4 games.
That's suspicious.
Here's also a kicker I've just learned. All in for the PS5 Pro with disc drive in Canada is $11,000, almost $12,000.
It's $1,100.
$1,100.
$1,200. So in Brazil, it's probably closer to $11,000.
So PSSR being usable in games that haven't implemented it, is that not a red flag to you, Ahmed? That's a red flag to me immediately for how good it could possibly be. Because
I guess
there are a few technologies like that now, and they're not very good.
Yeah,
we just don't know until we see it. The examples they showed, right? So people were kind of ragging on the examples they showed in the video. I don't know if you guys watched the video.
They didn't look good. Yeah, I watched the video, but it's a stream.
I thought they looked pretty good. And especially for a 1080p stream, obviously it would be even better natively. But like, I thought the improvements, I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want out of a PS5 Pro.
They didn't look spend $300 more good.
I guess that depends on who you ask.
I guess. Yeah, if $300 is worthless to you, then yeah.
Let me just say, I am exactly the audience for something like this. I'm a PS5 or PlayStation enthusiast. I'm going to pick this thing up day one, but even I can acknowledge that at this price point, there is a lot of consternation.
I think it's sub 10% of PS5 owners are going to upgrade to this thing.
I think 10% is a fair figure. I could see 9%. but
yeah. I could
the
see-
adoption
yeah.
rate of the PS4 Pro was 10 to 15%. And I think
Yeah.
we'll see a similar range, if not slightly less, for the PS5.
I think it's going to be less, dude. It's a lot of money, and money's tight right now for a lot of Americans, at least. I don't know how the rest of the world is doing, but money's tight. People are tightening,
yeah.
you can't afterpay your PS5 Pro.
Yeah, and then you go to other countries like Brazil where their electronics import taxes
Actually, you probably can afterpay your
bonkers.
PS5 Pro.
Like no one's gonna. It has to be several months of monthly salary to pay for a PS5.
What I
Bro,
will say
like, no
about this
one's buying
price
this.
is that it is the big thing everyone is talking about right now. This announcement was today, and I was kind of watching the discussion in real time as Mark Cerny was giving his presentation, and it was pretty warm up until that price was revealed at the very end, and then suddenly everyone was just screaming, right? This price is not really agreeable to the current market.
I mean, let's just look at your price per performance we're looking at here. They're saying it's a 45% faster console that costs 75% more, right? Because the PS5 digital edition is $400. This is $700, so that's an additional 75% of the
I see what you're
cost,
saying,
and
yeah.
you're not even getting a full 50%
No disk drive.
more performance. Yeah, so the value proposition is instantly not very good.
I agree with you. I think this price point, and this is pure speculation, but I think this price point exists because of the cost to manufacture this thing. Must have been much higher. And so they don't really have a choice. But I think from Sony's perspective, they could care less how many of these things they sell. This is very much a niche product. PS5 is still their core product. They're going to sell this thing to whoever will buy it. Obviously, the kind of conversation around it is not really good for them, but I suppose they're willing to take that hit to just put this thing out on the market.
So you think this is likely a stopgap? Like they were already doing these technologies for a PlayStation 6, and this is just putting out a
absolutely.
product that, yeah, that makes sense.
I imagine PS6 will have like a PSSR 2.0, or the perfected version of PSSR. Like I absolutely think that these technologies going into this box are early versions of things we'll see in PS6.
I think Sony, just based on the sentiment I've seen around this device, and granted it's anecdotal, I haven't seen numbers related to this. I've seen highly upvoted Reddit comments and Twitter threads, stuff like that. But I think Sony has an uphill battle getting anyone to buy a PS6 in the first place, because I saw so much sentiment that people don't even feel like the PS5 has started to sweat yet.
I agree with you.
That there
Yeah,
are
so
not
we
games
still
utilizing it.
feel way earlier in the PS5 generation than we actually are. We are past the halfway point, which is just unbelievable to even fathom, but we are around the halfway point of the generation. And it certainly doesn't feel that way. There's only a modest list of really must-own PS5 exclusives. And but here's the thing. I know the games are coming. Sony's first party are working on things that aren't just live service games. And I do believe that when some of these games get revealed, people will change their tunes pretty quickly. But right now, as the situation stands right now, I agree with you. Yeah, for what they have to show, PlayStation isn't the most enticing offer in the world right now. So, but I do imagine by the time PS6 rolls around, they'll have a pretty killer slate of games coming up.
Maybe.
But we'll see, yeah.
And they'll all be cross-gen with PS4 and PS5.
Well, yeah, not PS4, but yeah, definitely PS5.
Yeah, so graphics advancement. I mean, we've talked about this on the show a million times. We've seen this coming. Graphics advancements are to the point, and like you said, the PS5 Pro is not for the average person. It is an enthusiast product. But I did see a ton of people like saying I'm not going to get out a magnifying glass in front of my TV so that I can see the difference between the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. And we are just hitting such a wall graphically that it's wild that we're just there. I can't, the value proposition for the normal person is just not there for getting a console stronger than a PS5, I think.
I think that is true with the existing slate of games for sure. I think what they needed to really make this announcement more palatable was a brand new first-party game to show along with PS5 Pro. But they didn't have that, presumably because it's not ready yet, because nothing of theirs is ready yet.
Yeah.
Much to my frustration. But I think we will see games this generation that, when played on a PS5 Pro, will sort of justify its existence. But who knows how far those games are away? Maybe 2-3 years?
Yeah, I just don't know. Games look good now, and they look good at 60 frames per second on a PS5 in performance mode.
They do, but we're certainly seeing the limits of games on PS5. I look to games like Dragon's Dogma 2. I look to games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is a blurry mess in performance mode. Alan Wake 2.
Dragon's Dogma is an optimization issue. I just do not see a game that has any excuse to run as poorly as it does when I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that is certainly one part of it, but Capcom did come out and confirm that Dragon's Dogma 2 will be getting a PS5 Pro patch as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can always just throw more hardware at a badly optimized game.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Final Fantasy VII to say one way or another.
Yeah, I don't own Final Fantasy VII, but I've seen videos, and it's very blurry.
Yeah.
Which is not what you want, right? Obviously, I would take frame rate over resolution every time, but if it's blurry, then we kind of have a problem, right? But I suppose what I'm getting at, I was just going to say, what I'm getting at is that we are sort of hitting an upper limit now in the generation for PS5 games, especially in performance mode, right? We can hit the 60 FPS, but what it cost visually. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is another example. There's a lot of examples. Yeah, go ahead.
It was an interesting number I heard today, and this was in a video by Spawn Wave. I don't know where he got his number, but he claimed that that Sony had said that when they put a performance and is it fidelity? Is that what they call it? Performance and fidelity mode. 75% of players choose performance.
Mark Cerny said that in today's conference, which blew my mind. I was surprised. I honestly, when he said that, I felt like a little stab of joy. I felt like we won the battle, right? Because for the longest time, you heard this argument that, normal people just don't care about frame rate, but that isn't true.
But that doesn't feel like where the developer priorities are. The developer priorities definitely feel like they're on that fidelity mode to me. And I would like to think that having that number available will change that.
So I think developer priorities are on the fidelity mode because the fidelity mode is easiest to market. Yeah, marketing the game
not what anyone actually plays.
I know, right? But it'll get people to buy the game, which is always the number one goal. But in this situation, right? So Mark Cerny, he said in the conference that one of the big goals for PS5 Pro was to basically mash fidelity and performance modes together. So you're going to get the fidelity of fidelity mode and the performance of performance mode. So if that is true, we'll kind of see the best of both worlds where the games will look sharp, crisp, whatever, and get maybe average consumers to buy them more readily. And then when they get them, they'll have better performance.
See, this is why I can't be on console, because I would still not turn on fidelity mode. I would want to get 120 frames per second in performance mode.
Yeah, well. So what I'm saying though is that it sounded like there's only going to be one mode on games optimized for PS5 Pro. He did say developers can optionally use the PS5 Pro power for more frame rate or more higher resolution. But I imagine the number one goal of most developers are just hitting like a high resolution and 60 FPS.
4K 60. Yeah.
4K 60 with PSSR doing the upscaling to get to 4K.
Because it is still fairly rare, I think, for people to have a television that can do over 60 frames per second at 4K, over 60 hertz at 4K. I still think that's not terribly common.
Well, another stat that came out today was that roughly 10% of users have a display that can do 120.
Okay, 10%'s pretty high, actually.
I was surprised by that number too. So I think adoption of these more advanced visual capabilities that these TVs offer is going up as time goes by.
I thought you were about to tell me only 10% of PS4 owners had a 4K TV.
Oh, that's definitely not true. But
Because I know, 4K TV adoption has not been as fast as people thought it would be.
it hasn't been as fast, but we're getting there, right? But
Yeah.
that being said, there are a sizable number of people with PS5s that have a 1080 display. And in that case, they have performance mode, right? They already have performance mode. So I think this generation in particular, more so than most, because PC players already knew this largely, but with the PS5, Xbox Series X, you get these machines, and regardless of your display, you're probably seeing the 60 FPS more than any of the other modes, because if you don't have a 4K TV, it's going to default to this performance setting. And if you have a 4K TV, you can toggle back and forth, but it seems like most people are choosing performance. And I think just the word of mouth is also carrying that. People are very vocal online about we want performance, and I think that's finally bleeding through, and the mainstream is adopting that too. So that's, all in all, that's a very positive change, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, $700. I'm sorry, we have to
$700
keep going back to that. Yeah,
I've said it on the show before. A PS5 is worth $200 to me, and $1 more than that is too much, and $700 is just mind blowing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of people that were maybe thinking about getting this thing were thinking, okay, maybe I can trade in my PS5, get maybe half the credit for it.
GameStop will only give
Instantly,
you $200.
GameStop slashed that down today after the announcement, which is crazy.
The Reddit thread said they cut it in half. Is that true? Because
I'm not sure how much they cut
$400
it,
for a
but
trade-in on a PS5 would actually be really good.
yeah. Well, Sony did unofficially, I guess, slash the price of a PS5 today as well. With refurbished PS5s, you can get directly from PlayStation. You can get it. What did I send? It was like $400 for disc, $350 for discless, or something to that effect. So I suppose that's good to see, and it is the first price cut we've gotten this entire generation, which is crazy. It really seems like price cuts are a thing of the past, which is not great.
I refurbish my own consoles. I'm a man with a soldering iron and more confidence than I've earned.
I need to do that with my GameCube. I imagine I need to solder something, and that kind of intimidates me, but
it's not too hard.
I have used a soldering iron before in a lab setting, but
I say having broken my Game Boy I bought online, but once you've broken one thing, you do not like it immediately washes over you. You don't care anymore, and you're just ready to break whatever breaks.
Yeah, I will say, so offering my perspective a little bit, as someone who, quite frankly, was waiting for a machine like this to play a lot of games on my PS5, there are several games I have not, that I'm interested in, that I have not played because I was waiting for a PS5 Pro. I know I'm in the minority, but I'm just offering
I've done the same thing.
Perspective.
I had the Doom Eternal DLC sitting on my PC until I could get a new graphics card years ago. And by the time I had the setup that I was dreaming of, I didn't care anymore and I never played it.
Yeah. I was very pleased to hear that 40 to 50 games plan to support the PS5 Pro when this console launches. And these games are going to focus on 4K 60 modes with graphics boosts. So as someone who wants to play a lot of PS5 games, that's a very pleasing thing to hear. And obviously, I have disposable income. I'm not happy about the $700 price point. I'm certainly going to try and sell my PS5 to subsidize some of that. Even I, the biggest PlayStation fanboy, think that's a ridiculous price for this thing.
That's a lot of money.
I mean, do you foresee any chance that with the negative feedback, Sony could maybe walk it back $100?
No.
Not by launch day, no. They would have to see negative feedback will not make them lower the price. They would have to see abysmal sales like the 3DS.
But that's the thing, though.
They don't care, do they?
How much do they care about if this was the PS5? They would absolutely care. That's their lifeline. But for this thing, which is a niche product for a very small subset of PS5 owners, or maybe you're owning, maybe it's for PS4 owners who are waiting for a PS5 Pro. I've heard that before too, although I don't know how they're feeling now.
They're
the price is $700. But yeah,
well, okay, but I was waiting for this so that I could buy a PS5. I was waiting for everybody to be offloading their PS5s for cheap.
Yeah, and I might sell my PS5 to you for $200. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling. We'll see if Astro Bot gets announced for PC by then.
Oh man, Astro Bot. I'm going to talk about that later. But, oh man, so I'm sorry. I got the number wrong earlier. I have the information pulled up. Over 25% of PS5 owners own 120 FPS capable TVs. That's crazy.
Oh, that's high. That's really high.
That's over a fourth.
Is that 120 FPS at 4K though? Because a lot of TVs are 4K or 120 FPS. Does it say?
It does not say.
Okay.
But I imagine a lot of those are 4K 120 TVs.
Yeah, a lot of them. OLEDs are really popular, and I'm pretty sure.
And the number I was citing earlier, 1 in 10, that's for players that have VRR TVs.
Oh, see that VRR, I dream. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter for me because I play on PC. But VRR being the widely adopted technology for console is very good. VRR can make 40 FPS feel like 60 almost.
VRR is a lifesaver. It is one of the most important visual technologies we've gotten in recent years.
Yeah. I might have been exaggerating saying it makes 40 feel like 60, but it makes 40 feel a lot better.
It makes 40 feel tolerable, which is important, especially for console owners, because 40 FPS modes are becoming more and more prevalent.
And it makes an unstable 60 not very noticeable, which is really nice.
Yes,
you don't get stutters.
So we are getting little bits and snippets of information as the day goes on. They did show this. They did demo the PS5 Pro to someone from CNET, and they saw some games, and they made note of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth had much sharper visuals, which is good, right? You'd think that was one of the games that really needed it and was showing kind of the limits of the PS5. And they also commented on a Gran Turismo 7 demo they played. They said that the 4K 60 mode with ray tracing, they played that and it looked very nice. But they also said they played an 8K mode for Gran Turismo 7. And that just has me thinking, there can't be too many games getting an 8K update, because
it'd be a waste. It'd be such a waste.
That'd be an even bigger subset, like the audience that gets a PS5 Pro. And then in a subset of that, of PS5 Pro owners who own an 8K TV, that's going to be like single or double digit people, right? That's crazy. I mean, I don't have an 8K TV. I don't plan on ever really getting an 8K TV.
Well, one, it's stupid. Like, I don't like Apple, but Apple nailed it with the concept of a Retina display, which is to say a display that at the distance you are likely to be looking at is the highest necessary resolution to be indistinguishable. And 4K is absolutely a Retina display at a sensible size, at a sensible distance for a TV. It's just, on monitors, I could see 8K having value, but for a TV, I don't see it at all.
Yeah, you're going to have like an 80-inch TV and be like 3 inches away from it to really even perceive the difference.
It's just a waste of money to have one, unless you're using like a massive projector or an 80-inch TV. It kind of makes me mad that any development time at all is being
that's kind of what I was thinking. I can't believe that they spent dev time on an 8K mode for Gran Turismo 7, which is one of the biggest games on PS5, but still,
for all three people that are going to play that.
I'd have to imagine that it's one of those things where you have to do the thing to get more people to buy the thing, but I don't think it's going to work in this case. 8K TVs are such a high-end, niche, expensive product.
Is Sony clinging to 8K? Because this isn't the first time they brought it up.
I don't think they're clinging to it. They occasionally dip their toe in it, and when they do, it's sort of just like, why are you doing this?
But it feels exactly the same as when Nintendo was like saying how many bits a console was, when it has literally zero impact on a game.
Well, I suppose the difference is they're actually implementing this mode.
Okay, well,
rather than just talking about it.
N64 was actually 64-bit too, but it didn't matter. It's not why.
Yeah. But yeah, I just have to think that, is this a one-off? Are they just doing this to say they did it with Gran Turismo 7? Or are we really going to get some first-party games that have 8K modes?
It's gotta be. I mean, that's so many pixels. Well, it's probably using PSSR for one.
Oh,
thing.
absolutely.
It's not going to be a native.
There's
8K.
no way it would be. Yeah.
So it's probably actually like 1080p scaled to death. Maybe 1440p.
Yeah, 1080 might be kind of pushing it to scale all the way to 8K.
Yeah, but 1440 or 4K. Yeah, 1440 scale to 8K. Because you can usually quadruple resolution with an upscaler. So 1440 to 8K makes sense. I still just see zero value in it.
Yeah, I don't see any value in it either. It was sort of baffling, and it was just strange to me that this is one of the things they decided to show with PS5 Pro, because in doing that, you're kind of telling me that this is something you're going to support going forward, which I don't want them really doing that at all. I would much rather have a really good, really solid, beautiful 4K 60 ray tracing mode rather than an 8K 30
absolutely
resolution mode.
There's no way it's doing 8K with ray tracing either.
Absolutely not. There's no way. Yeah. I mean, 8K, that's just...
It's just
wow.
stupid.
Yeah.
It's meaningless. I would not... We're 20 or 30 years away from me being willing to buy an 8K TV, I think.
I don't know. Yeah, 20 or 30
Prices
years
would have to be so low.
Quite frankly, right now, yeah, I mean, even if prices were low, I just don't think I need one. I think 4K looks incredible.
They didn't mention PlayStation VR today, did they?
They did not mention it today, but they did confirm in a blog post later that PSSR will enhance PSVR 2 games in the future. So I don't know if that means at launch. Maybe some more work needs to be done on it. But they did say that PSSR will work on PSVR 2 games in the future. And it's kind of a bummer that that's not happening at launch, but I could kind of understand because the market really kind of rejected PSVR 2 and it's not a priority for them anymore, which is really a shame because I think they had something really cool with that headset.
It feels like a Vita to me.
Yeah, it does feel like a Vita, which
feels like
it really hurts me to say that. Yeah,
they abandoned it really quickly when it didn't immediately sell and obviously it wasn't going to immediately sell really well. VR is a niche.
Yeah.
Still a niche product.
But I really do like the sound of PSSR coming to PSVR 2 because I think that could have serious implications for the fidelity of the image in VR. Because I've played Gran Turismo 7 in VR, and I will say that is a transformative experience. It's unbelievable to actually be racing on that track. And to have PSSR applied to that, make things even sharper, I think would go a long way in even further enhancing that experience.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that it's coming. Kind of wish it would come at launch, but I suppose it is what it is. So PS5 Pro, I'm going to get it, but I'm not happy with the price, which maybe is a toothless thing to say, but
you'll be wagging your finger in the air as you hit
I send
$700.
Yeah.
$6.99 plus tip for Mark Cerny.
For Mark Cerny. Well, Mark Cerny, I want to talk about Mark Cerny a little bit. It was interesting hearing him talk because this was framed as a sort of tech talk, but it was way more, I guess, consumer friendly than I was expecting. I was expecting him to really dive into the details of PS5 Pro, PSSR, what they did to the GPU. And he's done stuff like that in the past. He's one of the most brilliant people on the planet. You know, he's a very smart guy. But this was more of a marketing presentation, and I'm just curious as to why they had Mark Cerny do something like this. Maybe because his name kind of has cachet with like the PlayStation audience now.
There's probably a crowd that hates Jim Ryan, and there's not a crowd.
I mean, they could have just had. I mean, really anyone do it, yeah. But I guess Mark Cerny is kind of one of the faces of PlayStation now, so maybe they had him do it. But yeah, like I thought that was a bit bizarre because it really was more of a marketing this thing than an actual technical deep dive, which is what I was expecting.
I was expecting it to be marketing. You can't do a deep dive on something the first time consumers hear about it. That doesn't make much sense to me.
I'm pretty sure he did that with the PS5 though. He really went into like the SSD and how it was using memory and stuff, and I was like, this is sick. But but that's kind of like Mark Cerny's thing. But yeah, I guess they've got him doing other things now. Well, I mean, obviously he designed this console, but like they're also using him more for public facing things now, I suppose.
Yeah.
But he's still got that buttery smooth voice. That
I missed the showcase or the presentation completely. I thought it was going to be longer than it was, I guess.
No, they said it was going to be 9 minutes, and it was 9 minutes. So
yeah, I was up on my
It's
roof.
really funny because it was confusing at first because he spent a good maybe 3 minutes talking about PS5 at the beginning. It's like, this is what PS5 can do. This is what we did with PS5. And I was like, okay, I see what you're doing. And then he was just like, and this is how PS5 Pro improves on all that. I was like, okay, that makes sense.
By costing way more money.
And literally, this video, let's say it was 9 minutes long, right? It might have been plus minus that, but let's just say for argument's sake, 9 minutes long. At the 8-minute 59-second mark, they flashed the price, and then it ends.
They knew.
They knew, yeah. They flashed the price at the very, very end, right before the video ends.
$700. I mean, that's just barely less. No, that's more than my first high-end PC that I built. But granted, this was 12 years ago.
Yeah, so.
But inflation's not that bad, man. Inflation's bad, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, $700 console, it just concerns me more so for the future. You know, is this a harbinger of console prices to come? I mean, what do we expect PS6 and Xbox Series 2 to cost?
I mean, like I said earlier, it's going to be an uphill battle to get anybody to upgrade from a PS5, I think. Just like it has been from PS4, but worse, I think.
But I hear what you're saying. I just don't think the data really reflects that. PS5 is still really tracking PS4's sales trajectory.
Okay.
So I think the problem is, as long as Call of Duty and Madden are there, people are going to buy PlayStations.
Yeah.
And that's whatever, right? That's what the kind of surface level casual market wants. But I guess for the more enthusiasts, I bet a lot of people really are looking more closely at PCs now and saying, maybe I should make the switch over to PC.
You're also assuming Xbox isn't going to completely ruin Call of Duty for everyone.
That's
which is extremely likely, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think Black Ops 6 looks pretty good, but obviously this was in development long before Microsoft got their grubby paws on Activision. So, yeah.
It's also hard to ruin something that's so awful in the first place.
Times are changing, yeah. I saw this theory posted online, which made me chuckle a little bit, is that what if the price of the PS5 Pro is so high, so Sony can launch a PS6 at $400 or $500 and really reel people back in? And I was like, there's just no way.
No, I actually think that's a pretty sound theory.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, so when the PS5 Pro is more cutting edge, I think, than a console typically is when it comes out.
It is, yeah.
And consoles are usually like
mid-range,
2 or 3 year old hardware, mid-range. So by the time the PS6 is coming out, it's gonna be old hardware. It's gonna be, I think it can come out at $500 probably.
Yeah. I suppose it depends on the price of the cost to build it at the time, which at this point, there's no way we could know. We can't really predict what will go into it either. I'd imagine it would be something around like probably 4080, 4090 is a good guess level GPU for PS6, but
I think that's likely.
Obviously 4 years from now, who knows what things are going to look like. But they certainly are asking developers. I mean, they do this with every PlayStation console. I mean, now's the time. They're R&Ding for the PS6. They're certainly talking to developers, seeing what they want improved from the PS5. So those discussions are being had.
That's also assuming that they managed to improve graphics cards meaningfully in the next 4 years, which every year it's a little less.
Hey, we're going to get a 5000 series announcement pretty imminently, so we'll have some stuff to talk about when that happens, I suppose.
And the 5000, if they follow the normal NVIDIA pattern, it's the odd numbers that are usually meaningful upgrades. The 40 series was not a huge upgrade over the 30 series. The 20 series was a joke over the 1000 series. It was awful. It was like the laughingstock of the internet. The 40 series wasn't that bad. It just wasn't a huge leap.
Right. But 30 over 20 was gargantuan.
30 was gigantic, but that was also like, you went from the 20 series was the first ray tracing, essentially. And then 30 series was, now it actually works a little bit.
Right. Yeah, so. I'm very curious as well. When all's said and done, the PS5 Pro's out, I'm curious to watch those Digital Foundry videos to see truly how PSSR stacks up against FSR, DLSS, XeSS, all of those technologies. It's just interesting that we've got another one of these now that's going to be presumably improving over the years. So
the one I want to see it compared against is, I think, Auto SR. Is that the Snapdragon one?
I didn't even know Snapdragon had one.
Yeah, Snapdragon has a Windows. It's a Windows thing for the Windows Snapdragon laptops. It's probably coming to everything eventually, but the Windows Snapdragon laptops have an upscaler that is bad. It's pretty bad, but it is AI based, and it works like FSR1, where you can apply it to any game, because it just applies in screen space, essentially. It doesn't have vector data or anything like that. It doesn't have any information from the game. And unless Sony have like done some insane magic, they're saying, which is not impossible, I guess, the way a console works, but it's unlikely. These games are not going to be supplying vector data, so I have no idea how they think they can get a good AI upscaler. It's going to be so muddy, I would think.
Well, I mean, we've seen very little footage so far, but the footage I've seen so far I thought looked pretty promising. It cleaned up the image quite nicely from a base PS5, but obviously we'll have a lot more data when this thing comes out, and Digital Foundry will put the thing through its paces. Yeah. And that's honestly the thing I'm most curious about. PSSR is the biggest kind of question mark to me as to how good is it.
Well, it has to beat FSR3 to have been worth making, right?
Like logically, you can deduce that, right? Otherwise, they would have just gone with whatever AMD.
Yeah, they would
up,
just use FSR3.
Right? So this is a custom piece of hardware that PlayStation collaborated with AMD to make. So
I take that back, because FSR3 can't be applied. I also wonder if it can be applied to any game, but also can have vector data to produce a better image, and they're just not telling you that. So Digital Foundry will find that probably.
Yeah.
That would make sense to me.
I think PSSR, or PISSR as we're calling it, is a promising technology.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I am also, I just want to say, glad to see another one of these hit the market, because I think the more of these there are, the more they're going to kind of push each other, and the more upscaling technology is just going to improve over time.
I'm curious if this is going to make its way back to PC, since AMD partnered with them to develop it. Like, RDNA 3 has AI cores in it, and there's nothing about the architecture of RDNA 3 that it cannot use an AI upscaler. AMD just did not put one out. So I'm curious if it's any good, if it comes back to AMD GPUs, which I'd be happy to see, especially if it's any good. But even if it's not, I'm always curious to look at another one.
I imagine that there's some proprietary hardware component that only PlayStation has access to, right? With their deal with AMD.
I think it's likely...
It's tough to say, but I could see something like that being the case.
I do not think we will literally get PSSR, but I find it hard to believe that AMD would go into a partnership without walking away with some technology.
Right. It's very feasible that PSSR could improve FSR in the future. Yeah. So
maybe we'll get an FSR 4 or 3.5 or something that uses AI on compatible cards. AMD really does not want to leave behind graphics cards that do not have AI cores, which I can respect. We'll see. We'll see how all that goes. There's not a lot of value in speculation, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up probably the biggest thing that will sell PS5 Pro to people, Grand Theft Auto 6, which is gonna presumably hit next year. It might get delayed. We'll see.
Yeah,
but
they don't want that Monster Hunter Wild smoke.
PS5 Pro will be the best way to play Grand Theft Auto 6 when it launches.
At launch, you're right. Yeah, because it's not coming to PC at launch.
That will certainly be a big accelerant for sales of that console.
God, you're right. People are sick, dude.
So, yeah.
1 year.
I'm curious to see the Grand Theft Auto effect on this console, because, I mean, nothing really compares to Grand Theft Auto. It has a unique, singular kind of force in this industry that can't be matched by anyone for some reason. So
nothing compares to Grand Theft Auto except every single middling open world game.
But you know what I mean, in terms of adoption,
in terms of sales, in terms of hype.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think PS5 Pro and Grand Theft Auto, especially if there's some kind of bundle there, that would be it might do much better than you think. Let's just put it that way.
That's a really good point. Unless Xbox counters it in any way. Xbox really loves being able to say they have the most powerful console of all time.
And it's interesting because this is the first time where Xbox isn't competing on the power front. That's also notable in that Phil Spencer came out and he said we're not going to lose on the power front again, and after PS4 came out, right?
Yeah.
And now, Xbox Series X was more powerful than the PS5, but now we've got a PS5 Pro that trounces the Series X. So I don't foresee, I mean, it's too late, right? These consoles have a lead time of a few years. There's no way there's an Xbox coming out anytime soon. So
releasing a third Xbox would be so stupid.
Xbox
too.
Series Z,
Xbox Series 3.
yeah, I don't know,
but it'd be deranged.
I think Microsoft's kind of cutting their losses at this point and focusing on the next hardware if it exists. I don't even know if that's happening, but
although this was a telling. PlayStation is willing to sell a $700 console in a world where Xbox is still in the console game. If Xbox pulls out of the console game, your PlayStation is going to cost $700 or $800.
No, that's a great point. This absolutely is an indicator of there is no competition for PS5 Pro in the console space this time, right? We had Xbox One X before versus PS4 Pro.
Right.
PS5 Pro is coming out, I guess, unopposed, if you want to call it that, and it's costing $700. So, for the high-end console space, PlayStation has the monopoly right now. You're right. If Xbox exits the console space, I shudder to think what these PlayStation prices will look like. So, yeah, competition is good for everyone, regardless of which team you're on or whatever. But PS5 Pro, $700. Have to keep saying that because it's just crazy that we're at this point.
$700.
Do we have any? Yeah.
Like, I think there are two types of expenses. There are expenses you do not have to save up for, and expenses you do have to save up for. And I think for the vast majority of people, $700 is an amount you do have to save up for. Yeah. And I do not think the amount of time to save up for $700 is not that different from the amount of time to save up $1,000. Like,
Plus, I mean, the
it's
amount,
so much money.
So people have, 2 months to save up $700 if they really want this thing?
Yeah, and
it's kind of not a lot of lead time either.
You know, the average American, allegedly, these studies are dumb. They don't really work because there are people lie, essentially. But allegedly, the average American is paycheck to paycheck. How are they saving up for a PS5? I
don't know, man. Yeah, I'm curious to see, because I really do think this adoption of this thing will hover around the 10% mark, but will the high price even drive the hardcore PlayStation faithful away? And I think there's a chance it might. There's a lot of people saying that, like, I mean, this is just all anecdotal, but just online, I'm seeing people say that they've bought every PlayStation in the past and they're not buying this thing because that's just too much to ask for a console.
So, in Brazilian real...
Which Mike's still on Brazil.
No, it's because it's a big market for games and everything.
Yeah.
It's a big market. $4,000. 4,000 Brazilian real for the PS4 Pro.
What's the average monthly income?
How much is a real in dollars? That's crazy.
It is $5 for a real.
Wait, you mean $5 for $1?
$5 for $1, yes.
Okay, I was going to say, Jesus Christ, it's a $20,000.
Is $65 less than the cost of a PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
In raw US dollars. That's not counting import taxes, and I think Brazil's electronics imports are high.
Brazil's not they're a big market for gaming, but they're not a big market for modern consoles, are they? Aren't they typically a generation behind or so?
It's because it's expensive.
Yeah, okay, but I'm not speaking on crazy outdated information saying that.
Yeah,
well, I mean, we're speaking from a US centric point of view, but in other territories the price is even more ridiculous. Like Mike said, in Canada you're paying $1,000 for this thing.
Yeah.
In Japan, the home country, you're paying $1,000 for this thing. You're paying what?
Japan
what was
is,
it? Like 100,000 yen or something?
Japan's also economically not in a great place right now.
Yeah.
In Japan you're paying 120,000 yen, which is crazy money. That's insane. I mean, the U.S. didn't even get the worst part of it. Other territories are getting gouged even more, so...
Yeah, it's catering to a smaller and smaller audience every time they do it.
I also just put I always do this with video games. I know they're not necessarily a children's medium, but I do think of myself as a kid wanting a video game. Put yourself in the shoes of a parent whose child just asked them for a $700 console that plays the same games as the console that's sitting in your living room right now.
Just because it's better. No one's going to buy that for their kids.
But Dad, look at the pixels!
Exactly. Yeah, as a kid, this would be the hardest. You'd have to have the potential to grow up to be the greatest salesman in the world to sell this to your parents.
Like, there's no way. I would not buy this for my kid. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, there's no feasible heir.
I do think that...
Go get a job, kiddo, and work for 8 months.
So I think that's funny and maybe a little relevant, but I do think kids are not going to be buying this thing.
It's not the target market.
This is for adults with disposable income that are severely indoctrinated into the PlayStation lifestyle that want the cutting edge. That's the market. However small that is the market. And I think Sony's okay with it being small.
The PlayStation equivalent of Disney adults.
Yeah, I guess. Sure.
Sorry, let me think of something meaner to say.
PlayStation's Apple moment, right?
Yeah,
where they're
exactly.
announcing
Yeah,
this
that's
thing.
better.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's unbelievable. It's kind of historic, right? PlayStation was previously memed on for generations for $5.99 US, and they have topped it with the PS5 Pro. So
only 2 generations later.
Yeah, $6.99. We just gotta wait for the $8.99 PlayStation 6.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any concluding thoughts on PlayStation 5 Pro? I think we've talked about it from a lot of angles. I guess I'll give my review once I get it and tell you whether it's worth $700. I guess mine is $200 to $300. Yeah.
You can like it a lot and it not be worth $700.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's what'll end up happening. I'll enjoy it, but it's like I'm acknowledging the fact that it's probably not worth $700.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, God, you could buy. I mean, there's like no reason to, but you could get a PlayStation 5 and a Series S and have access to all the games, or a PS5 and a Switch, and have access to all these games for the price of this.
Yeah.
It's just
very curious to see how this thing sells.
Yeah.
All right, so that is the PlayStation 5 Pro. One of the consoles we've talked about for a long time on this show. We've guessed on this thing. We've speculated on leaked specs in the past, so it's finally happened.
Have we talked about price? I'm really curious. I think we did say $600.
We mentioned something. We definitely guessed on the price earlier, so I'm curious what we said. I have no memory of what we said, but...
Yeah. Let us know in the comments, faithful fans.
But yeah, next week we'll probably talk about another console that is imminent. And we'll make sure to note our predictions for that one because I think we'll have them validated very soon.
Yeah.
But for now, let's talk about what we're playing. And I think I want to go first because I have...
more PlayStation.
Yeah, more PlayStation. Let's just get it all out of the way. But I've been playing Astro Bot. And I have completed it. I've 100%ed it, basically. It took me around 15 hours, and granted, a lot of that was kind of idle time because I think I left the console on once or twice.
So when you say basically 100% of it, is there some ambiguity there?
I have 100% of the game. There are more trophies I don't have because there's like little like secrets and discoverable things. But like,
you're probably not.
I've beaten the game. Yeah. I might go back and do it, but took me around 15 hours. That's definitely on the long side. You can beat this. You can probably 100% this game in 10 to 12 hours if you really, we're playing it. And this is my game of the year so far.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
this is
with that much confidence.
Yeah. This is my game of the year so far. Previously, prior to this game, it was Balatro, but I think this is unseated.
Really?
Balatro for me.
This beat Balatro. That's crazy. That's a good game.
What a stunning... It is a reminder of what PlayStation used to be. And that in itself got me a little emotional playing it, which I was not expecting to get emotional while playing Astro Bot, of all things. But Astro Bot being a love letter to PlayStation... It really is it's Nintendo's Smash Bros, but on PlayStation. But instead of a fighter, they did a platformer, which is, I think, a really cool way to honor your history. In that you have all these bots from different games that you collect. Those are basically your stars or your moons or whatever in this game. You're collecting bots. And a lot of these bots are just generic little Astro Bots, but a good chunk of them are from previous games on PlayStation's history of IP. And as you collect these, you collect them and they do a little like animation, and there's this really cute message that appears that's custom made for each one. And the message is constructed as to you won't really know what it means unless you're familiar with that IP, which I think is so clever because it's just a little hit. If you really have played that game and know it, it's like a reference that only you will get if you've played that previous game. So for a lot of these games, for a lot of these bots that I got, I had no clue what the message was talking about because I haven't played a lot of these games. But for ones I did, it felt really, really satisfying because it really kind of jogged my memory and made me feel really good, honestly. This is just the feel-good game of the summer. It is... I feel like it's just impossible to hate. You'd have to be a heartless monster to hate Astro Bot.
Or somebody who just really shouldn't have bought it because you don't like 3D platformers.
Yeah. But even without the whole PlayStation angle, it is just such a charming, thoughtfully constructed, creative on the level of something like Mario Galaxy. Truly, it is PlayStation's Mario. Yeah. PlayStation have their Mario with Astro Bot, and I think Asobi always was this talented, but this is the first time they've really had the stage space to show their stuff. And man, they are masters of the 3D platformer. Astro Bot is up there as one of the best 3D platformers of all time. I can say that with confidence. It is not difficult, right? So if you're looking for something difficult, right, like the final secret levels in something like Mario 3D World or Galaxy or whatever will run circles around this game in terms of challenge. There is a final secret level to Astro Bot, and it is hard, right? But it's not like break your controller hard. It took me maybe 5 to 10 attempps. So it's nothing crazy.
So not like Champions Road or anything in 3D World where you're going to be there for 2 hours.
No, nothing like that. The thing about Astro Bot is it really respects your time. None of the levels go on for too long. The game doesn't go on for too long. It feels perfectly paced.
Yeah.
Right? It's not too long. It's not too short. It ends where it needs to end. And man, some of these levels are just, stand out to me, right? Because like the way the levels work is that they're different planets, right? Mario Galaxy influence, once again.
Right.
They're different planets in different nebulas that you can travel between. And these planets are the levels, and as you complete them, right, like the planets themselves have anywhere from, 5 to 10 bots to rescue. And then you have these kind of side challenge levels, which are much smaller and that maybe only have a bot or two to rescue, but they're kind of like just testing your platforming or whatever. And those make up the majority of the levels in Astro Bot. At the end of each nebula, there's a boss fight, and the boss fights are spectacular in this game. Really, truly, I think the pinnacle of what a boss fight can be in a 3D platformer. They're so creative, they're so fast-paced, and they're just so much fun to play. And really, I want to comment on that too. The fast-paced nature of this game, there is a rhythm to playing this game that just, it flows so effortlessly, and it's very quick, and it feels just so meticulously crafted because everything's animated so beautifully. It looks like a Disney or Pixar film, and it's just fun, right? That's the biggest thing. Every moment of this game, every pixel is suffused with just fun. Where there's like, if you look off to the side, there's this fun little animation happening. They didn't even have to do that. Maybe 5% of players would have even seen that, but it's there. And it just adds to this feeling of every facet of this game is built around fun. It's fun to look at the world. It's fun to move Astro Bot. It's fun fighting bosses. It's fun going back to your hub world and just interacting with the bots. Which, by the way, as you save the bots, they all go back to the PlayStation 5 mothership, which is... It's cute, right? It's corny, but it's cute. They go back to the PlayStation 5 mothership, which crash lands at the beginning of the game on this like planet. And they're all there just kind of chilling. Some of them are working on the PS5, rebuilding it. Others are all grouped together by like IP, right? So all the Uncharted characters are off to the side. And all the God of War characters are like in another place. And you can go up to them. You can like hit them, which causes them to like play a little animation that is specific to their IP, right? Like, so if you hit Kratos, he throws his axe at you and freezes you.
Oh, that's
right?
cool.
Little things like that. Gosh,
Just
there's
very
so
charming.
many like that. Yeah, I mean, if you hit Spyro, he burns you, right? So
So there's a Spyro bot, and
yeah.
I saw the
There's
crash
all sorts
bot.
of bots in this game. Yeah, there's a crash bot. It's
So
funny because
they
the
have
crash
to do
bot is
some-
literally just a bot wearing a crash costume. So if you hit him, he just drops his like helmet thing and he puts it back on. It's very
Actually,
cute.
This is probably a licensing nightmare for them then, because I saw Dante
Similar
in
to
it, I
Smash
think.
Brothers, right? Yeah, Dante's in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they obviously, very similar to Smash Bros, had to go around to all these companies that were like, hey, can we use this IP? And I'm sure some of them said no, but a heck of a lot of them said yes, I can say, right? There's a lot of third-party characters in this game.
I would think you got to get Cloud Strife, you got to get somebody from Resident Evil, you got to
yeah,
get
all in there. Yep.
yeah, probably some Street Fighter. I
Lara
don't know.
Croft. Yeah, Street
Lara
Fighter's in
Croft.
there.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, so it's very cool. And like I said, all these bots from these IP have different, have unique animations. No one has the same animation, which really adds such a personal and kind of charming touch to a game like this. But I guess going back to the levels, right? The boss fights are really cool. And at the end of the game, I'm not going to spoil the end of the game. I mean, obviously, it's like a platformer. There's not really much to spoil. Oh, before I get to the end of the game, I just want to talk about the beginning of the game, which it starts directly where Astro's Playroom leaves off, which is something I was not expecting.
cute.
They're absolutely framing it as a sequel to Astro's Playroom, because
Which is free
like
with every
the
PlayStation.
free
Yeah.
game you get with PS5, right? So at the end of Astro's Playroom, you rescue all the bots, you rescue all like the PS5 parts, which is the conceit of Astro's Playroom. You're getting the CPU and the GPU and the cooling fans and all that. So the PS5 is a spaceship, right? You get all these parts, it blasts off at the end of Astro's Playroom. So the Astro Bot starts with the PS5 mothership flying through space and all the Astrobots on it. Right, and then it gets attacked by an alien and it crash lands on this planet, and then the game starts. And then you have to rescue the parts again. That's like the main part. So you go through these planets, you fight the boss at the end, you get one of the parts back, and when you get the part back, there's a little mini game where you have to like clean it off and then like reinstall it into the PS5, which is again just very cute and charming. But the end of the game is really kind of a bombastic kind of celebration of PlayStation. You see basically all of the previous PlayStation hardware is involved, which is funny to say out loud, but like you've got like PS1s and PS2s flying around. And the game ends with, again, a really creative boss fight, and the credits play, and even the credits, that like, this is what really made me go, wow, like Team Asobi is just on another level. Even the credits were a fun level to play through, right? So the credits were constructed as a 3D platformer level that you go through, and it's just like a victory lap. And for like the amount of polish and charm this game has, they even went one step further and applied all that to the credits. And it's really cool in that the credits, the way the level for the credits works out is that to go through the level, you have to see all the credits. But it's not like slow or tedious or anything. But the way they do it, you basically get to see everybody's name, which I think is really important.
Yeah, that's cool. Because
for
most
a
credits
game
just
like
get
this.
ignored.
Yeah. It's just, I could gush on and on about this game, but like, as a 3D platformer, as a monument to PlayStation, especially as a fan of PlayStation, the history of PlayStation, this game is a must play. I think it is a 10 out of 10 game. I think it's one of the best 3D platformers ever. And I think it is in the same conversation as Mario. I also want to point out, so at the end of each of the nebulas, after you beat the boss and rescue the ship part, there is a bonus level. And these bonus levels are some of the most fun parts of the game, because these bonus levels involve you teaming up with a bot from one of PlayStation's most beloved IP and basically just going through a level with entirely new mechanics based off that IP. So for example, I posted that screenshot in the Discord of God of War, right? So in that level, Kratos hands you his axe, and you basically become a Kratos bot. And you have the axe controls, right? You can swing your axe around, you can throw it to freeze stuff, and it basically is a God of War level.
That's
you know,
crazy.
so and I
Doing
don't want
that for a bunch of different IPs though. That must have been. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a Mario Odyssey.
Granted,
almost
like I said,
kind
this
of
is
thing.
this is the conclusion of each nebula. So there's only 4 or 5 of these in the game,
Okay.
but they're like the big moments, right? This is like, and especially if you've played that IP before, it's just going to put a huge smile on your face, right? And obviously, I'm not going to really spoil it here, but if you're familiar with the PlayStation, you could probably guess a good number of these.
Yeah.
And
right.
I will say, I guess I will spoil one, but it's the most obvious one. When the Uncharted level happened, I almost cried because it
Yeah.
made me miss Uncharted so much.
Was there a Last of Us one?
No,
Okay, good.
they
That would have been boring.
They did Uncharted. But
Uncharted
there are
is a
Last
way
of Us
better
bots,
pick for a
of
3D
course, to
platformer.
save in the game. There are Last of Us bots because, but yeah, Uncharted, the Uncharted level, and the really cool thing is when you save the bot corresponding to this level, they straight up play music from the game. So when you save Kratos, they play not even like an Astro Bot version. They straight up play the soundtrack from God of War. They straight up play the soundtrack from Uncharted. But then, like, after they play it initially, after you save them, then as you play through the level, there's this Astro Bot rendition of the songs in the game.
It may be the soundtrack of the year then.
So there's like all this Uncharted music, but with like cute little Astro Bot kind of affectations going.
I might watch
Right.
that level on YouTube. I'm dying
So-
to play this game.
So for the Uncharted level, right? So you're in the jungle, and like there's all the mainstays, right? Like there's so many references to the IP if you're familiar with it. There's like the U-boat from Uncharted 1, and then there's like the temple from Uncharted 2, and all these things. The pirate ship from 4. But you're going through this level, and you have kind of like a toy gun, right? So this level is a third-person shooter, basically, / platformer, of course.
Right.
Whereas, you know, the God of War one was like a platformer / kind of like action. I don't want to say game because that's generous, but, you know, like a little level.
Yeah.
So those levels are absolutely the highlight of the game, especially as a fan of PlayStation, because they just really take you back and let you relive those IPs. And especially in cases where it seems like there's no more games coming, because obviously God of War, you know, there's going to be more God of War, but there's no hint of Uncharted on the horizon, which makes me really sad. And that's why it really kind of spoke to me playing that level. I was like, man, I miss Uncharted so much.
Yeah.
But-
I would do a lot to get an Uncharted 5 or an Uncharted reboot with
Yeah,
his daughter
me too.
or whatever.
Yeah, anything
in
at this point. Yeah.
With that style, with that, because I joke about hating The Last of Us. I don't hate The Last of Us. I would trade The Last of Us for 2 new Uncharted games in an instant and feel nothing. Nothing but joy. I miss it so bad.
I mean, I've said it before. Uncharted is my favorite Sony IP. I just love
Me
Uncharted
too, I
to
think.
pieces. It's so important to me. Like, heck, I had for the longest time, I had the Sic Parvis Magna ring that Drake wears around his neck.
yeah,
Like, I had that just because I thought that was so
it's
cool
not a bad look
back in
Yeah.
the day. But man, I miss Uncharted. It made me nostalgic for a lot of things, right? Playing through Astro Bot, even if you don't get the dedicated level, you rescue these bots from these games, and you're like, huh, I miss Jack and Daxter, right? So
I saw some less kind reviews. Like they liked the game, but some people that said it was more like a graveyard.
yeah,
which
I saw that review too. That I don't know. I think you'd have to be pretty joyless to think of it.
I agree, but it also is a little true. These are all IPs that we're not going to see again outside of something like this.
yeah,
Or
like
not
especially
all. A lot
for
of
the
them are.
older
We're
ones.
not
Like
getting
I
a
mean,
Parappa
I
game.
can't. I can't imagine ever getting a Jack and Daxter, which also makes me sad, right? I really love Jack and Daxter, but one other thing I need to mention, right? So the hub world, which is that planet where you crash landed on, you rescue the bots, they hang out there. There are also these like hidden puzzle pieces in every level, and as you get puzzle pieces, you unlock new things in the hub world. And the first thing you unlock is a gacha machine, and this gacha machine, you can spend 100 coins, which isn't a lot, to get something from this machine, and it basically gives you an item for one of your bots that correspond to the IP. So that's another way of kind of customizing it further. So, for example, Kratos gets his axe or something, or like a sharpening stump for his axe. And this changes their animation in the overworld because now they're there with that item. So, for example, Jack got Daxter. So now Jack's in the overworld. The Jackbot is with a little Daxter bot on his shoulder, right?
That's cool.
So little things like that. So that's another thing. That's actually something I want to go back and do because I think I have like 115 or so of the gacha items, but I do want to get all of them because that adds a lot of personality to the bots in your hub world.
Do they actually give you a mechanical obviously there's charm and everything there, but do they give you a mechanical reason to come back to that hub every once in a while?
Yes. So the hub is where you unlock new nebulas. So after you complete a nebula, you have to go back there, and then you'll be able to access a new area of the hub world and rescue like a satellite part that will detect the next nebula, and then you can go there. So you do have to go back a few times.
This game so bad, dude.
So
this is the must-have PS5 game to me at this point.
And plus, I mean, look at the critical reception. It is the highest rated game outside of Elden Ring this year, and Elden Ring is like a 22 game. So you can. It is fair to say it is the highest rated game of the year so far. So
far, we still the deluge has begun.
It has begun, yeah. But like I also. It has begun, but I see a hard time seeing something top this. This was just a flawless experience top to bottom. It was so much fun. And that's the biggest thing too. This game is fun. It is a reminder that video games are supposed to be fun. You know, it is a relic of an older time in PlayStation's history. This is absolutely like a PS2 game.
Yeah, maybe they should make things other than gritty third-person shooters with skill trees and
I do love that this game comes out the same week Concord bombs, because I don't think you could send a stronger message to Sony than that. One of their expensive AAA projects, live service projects, fails and is rejected by the market completely. And then Astro Bot comes out, is showered with accolades, is the highest rated game of the year, and I truly, truly hope the sales reflect that too.
We don't know anything about sales yet, right?
We don't know anything, right? The only thing we know is like UK physical sales, but like that doesn't really
That's
mean
not
anything.
Useful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Small market.
But yeah, so if this game doesn't sell, I'm going to lose faith in humanity, man.
Yeah.
Like this has to sell. But at the very least, it's getting its accolades. Like it's got a 94 on Metacritic, which is just a 94 is a must-play game.
Agreed. Yeah.
So it's got the same score as something like, I believe it has the same score as God of War Ragnarok, which it's Astro Bot. You know, this is Team Asobi.
I would have given Astro Bot Rescue Mission on the PSVR 1 was a 10 out of 10 to me. That game was magnificent.
Yeah.
Team Asobi hits every time they swing.
Yeah, I mean, but I agree with you, but I think they've truly proved it with this game, because this is not a VR game. There's none of the usual caveats you can
There's
throw
no
out
gimmick
there.
to this one.
Yeah, this is just this is a full-fledged game, and they come out like this. So I think Astro Bot, short of having like a sales disaster, I think Astro Bot has a very bright future. I think we'll see a lot more games like this from Asobi, and I can't wait, because I think there's some of the most talented developers out there.
I'd love to see Astro Bot on the box of the PS6. I'd love to see, because PlayStation does not have a mascot.
I think Astro Bot is that
Astro Bot should be
now.
the mascot. Yeah, he's no other character in PlayStation's lineup has.
Well, I think
the charm.
We've talked about this in the past, but I think PlayStation has cyclical mascots, like Crash was the mascot, and then Kratos, and then Nathan Drake, and then Aloy. But I absolutely think Astro Bot is the mascot now, and I think it'll stay that way, because unlike those other four, Astro Bot is made to be a mascot. He's the perfect mascot. He's cute, he's expressive, and he's just
he's also like
fun.
A video game above all.
He's a video game.
He is very happy to be a video game. No one is asking for an Astro Bot TV show. No one is asking.
Right, exactly.
He is a video game, and that's all he aspires to be, and he's very happy to be there. And that's what you want in a mascot.
Yeah. Gosh. Man. I didn't want to go into this, but there's a moment in the game where like Astro kind of like breaks.
Oh no.
And like I didn't it got me a little choked up. I was like, obviously he's going to be fine. I mean, this
you
is
have to play the
Astro
rest
Bot.
of the game.
But I was just like, you're this cute little guy. I don't want him to be hurt, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it just kind of broke my heart seeing
Sorry,
Astro
I didn't play better.
hurt. Yeah. But man, but that tells me they really have something special with Astro Bot. Like, they have someone that could be the face of PlayStation for the foreseeable future.
That's exciting.
All right, I think I've gone on for long enough. What have you guys been playing?
I suspect Mike's been playing this too. I've been playing Satisfactory.
I've just restarted.
Yeah.
I was
played
actually
it
going
a
to
lot
start that tonight.
beforehand, but
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if you guys want to hang on Discord a bit after the call, I'd love to.
Well, I gotta edit this episode.
Yeah,
So.
I
You gotta
gotta
edit the
go
episode, yeah.
run and do grocery shopping. Unfortunately,
I'm gonna probably be playing Satisfactory late into the evening. I had time just to play through the tutorial to remind myself how to play the game. It's been a very long time.
The onboarding's so bad.
I don't think it's bad. Because
It's long.
I did
It's
not-
like 2-3 hours for onboarding, and if you've already done it once, it's just painful.
it took me like 40 minutes to get
Yeah.
through. So they've probably streamlined it.
They might have. It used to be like an hour and a half.
Yeah. It took me like 40 minutes to get through the onboarding, and it was boring. The onboarding, but that's because I'm a factory game veteran. I think this onboarding is not boring if this is your first factory game, and I would highly recommend you play it because there are systems you're learning in here that you may not have thought about before.
It will be my first factory game, so
Yeah,
I will probably appreciate a long onboarding.
It's also not like, it's not grueling, and it kind of introduces you to the world and introduces you to Fixit, the company you're working for. It introduces you to something else. I don't know what it is yet. This game has a story now, which is kind of unique among factory building games that are not early access. And I'm actually excited to see that story because none of that was there last time I played. I also just want to point out, I guess early access games kind of get a gimme on this, but it is so nice to fire up a game that looks as good as this does, that runs as well as this does, and is not like a buggy mess, you know?
It's so nice to see this game because I picked up this game, I think, shortly after its launch on Epic.
It had some jank when I picked it up, for sure.
Maybe I think update like 2 or 3. And
it was
it
a little later than that.
old. Like I was before Pipes. I remember getting hyped for Pipes.
Oh, wow. See,
Yeah.
I have it on Steam, so I think when it came to Steam, I picked it up.
It was like a
but-
year after it came out of early on
It's-
Epic.
It's a good, I don't know, I'm just really excited to play it. It looks good. The trailer was incredible. It's coming to console, they announced in the trailer today, the launch day trailer, and it's coming with controller support to PC, which I'm excited for because this is a much more casual factory builder than Factorio. This is something I would rather be kicking back on the couch to play than playing with a keyboard and mouse. But
Really? Because I always kind of assumed this was a keyboard mouse kind of deal.
it is the way it's implemented right now. The controls demand a keyboard and mouse. But I actually, back in the day, when my Steam controller was in better shape, I actually had bindings set up to play this on my Steam controller and kick back on the couch. It was nice. It's a slower game. This game never demands speed from you, really. You know, at the beginning of the game, you have to gather fuel for your biomass burners to keep your factory running, and I guess that's kind of a time limit. But unlike Factorio, there's no enemy force that is going to move on your factory, so you do not have to speed run in the way that you kind of do in Factorio a little bit. So even if it takes a little longer to do the maneuvers on controller, that's just fine.
Yeah, I popped in with update 2 in March of 2019 or May 2019-ish.
Satisfactory is more a game that encourages you to build a beautiful factory and kind of appreciate the aesthetic side as well as the efficiency side.
And it's also a game that does not prohibit you from just breaking everything down and starting again.
Absolutely. You get 100% of
it.
your resources back. Factorio doesn't. Factorio encourages that as well, I would say.
That's just more it's not as painless as it is in Satisfactory, because Satisfactory also has multi-dismantle.
Right. I don't know what that is. Yeah.
You can just select up to 50 items to demolish at once.
Oh, that's pretty. But you can do that in Factorio too. You can. I don't know. They've added blueprints, I guess, which is new since I last played. There's a lot of new stuff for me coming into this. I think there's 9 tech tiers in this. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah,
9
9
phases. Yeah, so I'm really excited. This is the kind of game a lot of people can spend 800 hours in or whatever. I'm curious to see how long it takes to just do a playthrough of it, because I don't intend to spend 800 hours on it.
I think my playthrough where I got to like tier 4 or 5 took me 40 to 60 hours.
Really?
But there is so much you can do with the verticality and the construction since it's a 3D space.
Right. The optimization is incredible, because I remember watching the kind of factories they built in the trailer and everything. I remember I think it might have been, I think I had a 3080 at the time. I think I was still on the loaner 3080. The game did start to chug once you started building bigger factories, and you had to kind of wall off your production to prevent frame rate issues and stuff. And that's just not an issue anymore. It doesn't seem like. It seems to just run like a dream.
Yeah. And resource nodes not running out also uniquely brings to this chill experience of just building a factory and relaxing.
Right. And it's a handmade map.
Yeah.
With like stuff to explore in it, which I think is cool.
And like the monsters and everything are progression blockers. And if you really don't want to mess with the combat side of the game, you can just turn it off.
Yeah, but if you do leave it on, they actually I ran into combat much sooner than I expected. The very first node that I ran to had one of the little hog things.
Yeah, every node is guarded, and big boss ones that can really ruin your day block progression into other areas of the world.
You can also customize your character now, which is new to me. I don't know when that got added, and apparently
that's
1.0
came out.
And there's a lot of customization for colors and stuff for your factory and all, so you can really just make it look however you want. I think they are really encouraging you to build a cozy like space to approach this almost like you would an Animal Crossing game, but with actual stuff to do.
Yeah.
You know, you actually have to build your factory. It has to be efficient, but then you also make it look good because this is a space you're going to be spending a lot of time in and living in, kind of. I'm excited to play it. I'm only an hour in. I actually have a buddy who I played it through with years ago, who's like a dad now and stuff, and he set a day aside. He's going to hop on and play a day of Satisfactory with me, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to finally playing this game. I mean, I've been hearing a lot about it for years.
Yeah,
I feel like now.
I think I've talked about it once or twice on the podcast.
And it's big multiplayer too. A really great multiplayer game. I don't know. I'm probably not going to, other than playing with Antonio, I'm probably not going to do much multiplayer with it. I'm probably just going to play through it by myself. It's a game with a story, and I'm not somebody with factory games. I don't like to have a part of the factory I don't understand. And when you play multiplayer, you tend to get that sometimes. And I also, for your first playthrough, I'm a big proponent of playing it by yourself, because once you know not even necessarily the most efficient way to build something, but once you have an efficient idea of how to build something in your head, you can't undo that. So you're probably just going to build it that way forever. So you've kind of ruined that puzzle for yourself. It's nice to have those discoveries without someone walking you through
and
it.
Even as you go through the tiers, you start to uncover more efficient ways to reorganize your factory every single time.
Right. And
like you start with like 3 constructors to an ore miner, and then you upgrade your ore miner, and suddenly you need 6, then 9.
Yeah.
Then you need to upgrade all the belts because your throughput's too high. And then at that point, you just rip down the entire factory and rebuild it from the ground up.
What starting zone are you using, Mike?
I'm using Grassy Fields, but I've played on every single one of them.
For a first playthrough, Grassy Field is just the one to do. It's the main one. It feels like the others are just kind of really there for variety and multi-playthrough. The desert seemed that was where I did my playthrough with Antonio, and it seemed much easier. Like once you got past the very first hurdle, I felt like moving the resources around, you also had all this flat space. You didn't have to lay down as much foundation.
Yeah.
It was very easy to get a flat, gigantic factory going. And that's advantageous, obviously.
And Northern Mountains, or whatever it's called, that one has, or it used to, I don't know.
I think it's Rocky Desert.
Yeah, there's the Northern Mountains, Northern Forest.
The jungle.
Northern Forest.
Line.
They
so true.
They reworked it recently, but it used to be really mountainous and everything.
Yeah.
So you were pretty much forced to build off of cliffs and make it look your factory look ugly and not blend in with the landscape. because I know people run sky factories and everything where they just build a pillar up and then build
That's
foundations.
boring.
But
That's so boring.
That is so boring, and it is. I get it's the most optimal way to run a game, and gamers will always optimize the fun out of literally anything we play.
Yeah,
but sometimes it's more fun to work with the terrain than against it.
I really liked the way I liked to play last time I played, and I don't know if this is going to work anymore. I don't know what all's changed, but I really like to build a production tower where if a resource had multiple phases from the raw material, the first floor would be the first stage to get the next set of ingredients. The second floor would be another stage, and then so on and so forth, so that it would just be really tall instead of taking up a bunch of space width-wise. And then I could just copy that wherever I needed it. This was, I would have had to have done it by hand back then, but now the game has blueprints. And I think that's a good way to go because that fits just about anywhere and looks kind of cool. It has elevators all over it and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm just really excited to get back into it.
There's a lot of verticality you can experiment with as opposed to the more top-down like Factorio. Factorio, you just use...
Yeah, there's no verticality.
Eat space alive.
I'm also, apparently there's like alien tech in the game now.
Yeah,
I'm excited
I've looked somewhat into the patch notes for what it is.
See, I'm going in totally blind, and I'm excited to do so.
Verticality is my favorite part of this game, and it encourages it. And I can pivot verticality into another game that I've been playing.
Oh yeah,
because I've been playing Deadlock.
Oh yeah,
finally time to talk about Deadlock.
The secrets are about to be revealed.
Just before, have you even launched it yet, Ahmed?
No, I couldn't. So, okay, I thought Mike had given us codes, and I couldn't, like, figure out how to launch it, but now apparently it's just free to everyone.
No, it's just free to everyone now.
Is it free to everyone now? Did they finally open it up?
You know, that was funny. Like, I asked for that, like, a couple weeks ago, but then I just ended up buying and playing Black Myth Wukong.
No, it's still in a invite open.
Oh, you still need an invite. I have the invite. I've done the invite. I have the game downloaded, and I just haven't launched it yet. I've been busy.
I've played, I think, 2 or 3 matches of it, and it is probably the most interesting and intriguing MOBA I've ever played. And
so it's a MOBA.
A lot of MOBAs. It's a.
Why did I think it was a hero shooter?
Well, it's because it's a third-person shooter.
Oh,
there is
that's
no
kind of new.
Arbitrary attack ranges like Smite.
Okay.
So where you aim is where your bullet will go, and there's damage fall off, but it makes laning super interesting because instead of hugging a tower and hoping they don't get within range to attack you, you actually have to use the map and cover and catch them out of cover to deal damage.
So there's not to say that normal MOBAs don't have skill, but there's a more mechanical.
Yeah, there's a layer of mechanics, and it changes the way that early laning phase works. Contrary to every other MOBA I've played, instead of hugging tower, I'm running around the map or running around the lane trying to stay in cover and poke when I can. There's no mana management, so abilities you just kind of throw them out. They're all cooldown.
I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to try this.
Itemization's pretty easy. The map, the laning system and the hero select system, so neat. There's 2 duo lanes and 2 single lanes, 6v6. And if you're in a duo or in a queue with somebody, you're prioritized laning with them.
Oh, okay.
Of the 3 games I played, all 3 of those, I ended in the same lane with my friend. And you share experience and you share their gold equivalent for the first 10 minutes. So it doesn't matter who kills what.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It's all shared for the first 10.
But if you spend it, it gets spent for everyone?
No. No.
Oh.
So say if someone kills a monster in the lane, you both get 10 souls.
So if I'm like terrible at this game, but you're really good at it, I'm not like killing our team.
Yeah, and you're not fighting over who gets to kill minions or creeps or whatever you want to call them.
So how long's a match?
At least for the first 10 minutes, right? So I guess it changes after that?
After that, it becomes whoever kills it gets the credit gold for it.
How long's a round?
30 to 40, upwards of an hour.
Pretty long.
It's a MOBA, yeah.
Okay, so they made it so the early game you're not fighting for experience.
That's a really good change.
It is.
That's a really smart change.
You could tell it comes from devs that have worked on a MOBA before and thought, how can we streamline the MOBA formula so that it's not irritating to play early game? I enjoy the early game so much because it changes so drastically every game.
Gabe Newell himself is like obsessed with Dota, apparently.
Yeah. And I think they brought the Dota dev onto this game. I think they brought Ice Frog over to work on this game.
Interesting.
So
yeah, I gotta check it out. I'm not a MOBA guy. I've never met a MOBA I liked.
This one is definitely different. You don't fight for hero picks. You pick 3 before a game. You can assign them a priority, and you get whatever you picked. So if you
how many heroes are there?
There's 28 right now.
So a lot. Okay.
Yeah, you can
a lot
pick
for a
the entire
shooter.
pool to random through, but
that's cool.
You can pick 3 to whatever.
Huh.
Very, very interesting systems.
Yeah.
I need to play more of it, but I never have time to play it.
So is the objective to like push into the enemy base?
Yeah.
And kill their nexus, kind of like League?
Kind of like League.
Okay.
Except they're
it's just so interesting.
Their patron has 2 phases now, so you attack first phase and that retreats further into the base for you to kill second phase.
Uh-huh.
So
okay,
there's still a comeback potential if they kill the first phase.
It's just that I've never seen gameplay of this game, so I'm just having a hard time imagining a third-person shooter mixed with a MOBA. That's just breaking my brain a little bit.
And it's vertical. The map has so many rooftops. It has wall jumps. It has dash jumps. There's so much movement tech to the game right now, and they keep adding more. So
it sounds very interesting.
I'm very interested in it. I'm probably going to be playing more of it at some point when I get time again.
It's just when Valve, especially Valve games, have this mystique around them because they're so
rare.
Rare. That when they come out, you kind of have to be like, okay, what's going on here?
They're already intriguing. It's already an intriguing game, and it's as of like it's hitting. I don't even know what stats are hitting. Like 400,000 players in a closed beta.
Wow.
Yeah, I just remember seeing the numbers for that versus Concord, and I was like,
yeah, this
Concord's so finished.
It's so over.
It's over.
It is literally over.
Now it's so back with Astro Bot, but now it's so over again with the PS5
It's sitting at 84,000 players right now, and the game's just launched. Like the playtest runs from 6 p.m. to 4 p.m. to 6 a.m. or something similar to that. Peak today, 100,000, 115,000 players.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wait for this game to come out. I don't like dealing with the.
Yeah, Valve certainly knows how to. They're making it
run.
They're like this is only out for a limited time, so get it while it's hot, and people are climbing over themselves to get to it.
It runs so well. It is so well optimized. It feels like almost a finished game if it wasn't for the fact like the game bones are all there. It is the only thing holding it back is I think is some art assets that aren't up to date, and they're still kind of iterating on mechanics. I have big faith for this game to be insane on the esports circuit.
Yeah,
just based off of my initial observations of it.
If it's a MOBA where you have to be able to aim, that just adds a whole nother layer to the whole thing. And I can't imagine it's going to be simplified in any way from a more numbers focused MOBA like League.
Yeah, it's stellar. I have good faith. I remember us talking about in the TikTok comments on one of our reels, and now that I can actually talk about it and it's not under NDA or whatever a Valve style NDA it was under, we're probably going to see a lot of videos up from it too.
Yeah,
I know I streamed it last week,
but it's still invite only. That's kind of curious, even though they've kind of opened it up more.
It's invite only, but you could just add your entire friends list to it. There's nothing to stop you.
Do we know like when it'll come out?
No idea. It's deep dev right now, so I give it another year or 2.
That's fascinating because it kind of sounds like it's pretty much done based off what you're talking about. But maybe they're adding a lot of polish to it or something.
Yeah, they're doing so much polish. I think there's some unreleased heroes in the game. I mean, Dota had the same system when it came out. It didn't really come out for 2 years and was in a limited beta, but the game was functional and was running esports tournaments. So
yeah,
Valve just does things differently, I guess.
They're just built different.
Connor, you have anything else?
Nah, just Satisfactory, man. That's
all right. I promise I'll keep this quick.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
But
2 hours
I have
incoming.
continued to play Slay the Spire.
Oh my god.
I just can't stop. Even in the midst of Astro Bot, I was finding time for Slay the Spire. But I'm happy to report I have cleared the full game, including the final, like the secret final boss and all 3 of the main characters. So I have gotten better at this game, people. I'm just saying. It's clearly happening. And I do want to do the same on the bonus 4th character, the Watcher, the one that was released later, not with the main game. But it was a big goal of mine to do it with at least the original 3 before moving on to the Ascensions. But yeah, I think just between playing so much Slay the Spire and also now watching a lot of Slay the Spire on YouTube, I've just gotten better just by being exposed to so much Slay the Spire. But yeah, I just wanted to say that I've finally done it, and it's not like some rare once in a blue moon type thing for me anymore to clear the heart in the Slay the Spire. So
I'm proud of you.
Thanks. But that's all I really wanted to say. So that'll do it for us this week. Thank you all for listening. You can follow us at Podcast Game Talk on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Click the link in the description to join our Discord and talk to us there. And please like, rate, and review us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast services you use. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
See you next week. Bye.